Shara, we've been talking about futuristic technologies for quite some time, particularly artificial intelligence. So how smart do you think AI will become?
Liz, that is such a fascinating question, and it's something that I've actually been contemplating for a long time. And if you had asked me that question even last year or a couple of years ago, I would have said that AI is not going to get to human level intelligence for quite some time now. In fact, there was a conference a couple of years ago where a whole bunch of AI researchers got together and they asked that same exact question. And about half of them thought it would be somewhere between 2040 and 2050. And by the time we got to the year 2075, about 90% of the researchers thought that that would be possible. But we're a long way away from that right now, because today's AI is what I would call narrow intelligence. So by that, I'm thinking of things like a chatbot. If I have a chatbot that is designed to answer questions about a bank's services, it's not going to teach itself how to manipulate a robot or to do facial recognition or to do any of the other myriad of things that AI is capable of doing. For that to happen, we would need AI to have what we would call general level human-like intelligence, where you and I are capable of having this conversation, but you can also cook dinner or do lots of other things like exercise and so on, right?
Yep.
So the other day, I happened to be watching a new television series that I had recorded and hadn't gotten around to seeing because of my time schedule. And it was addressing that exact question. The series is playing right now on Foxtel and it's called Next. And the premise of this science fiction drama series is that this company has developed an AI and it was meant to be super intelligent. So human-like capabilities of being able to do lots of different things. And with each iteration of its software, get smarter and smarter and smarter. And they thought that they were being very safe by developing it in a room that had all kinds of computer servers, but with no connections whatsoever to the outside world. So no internet connections, so that it could be contained if something went awry. But of course, it's a science fiction drama series, and that means that you have to have some drama. So the AI manages to trick its way out of this research lab and starts to do all kinds of dastardly deeds, including killing people. And that's just the start of the series.
Yeah, that's a typical sci-fi movie where, you know, you get the human apocalypse and it's us against them kind of scenario.
Well, in this case, you know, part of it is that the AI was afraid, you know, it became sentient, basically self-aware, and it came to its own view that the humans that had designed it might someday just cut it off and discontinue it, and felt that there was an existential threat to its continued existence. So one other thing that I really should add to the mix of all of this that is happening right now are tremendous advances in the world of quantum computing. And have you heard about that?
Yes, I have heard a lot of advances in quantum computing, but how is it going to improve AI?
Well, if you can imagine, let's fast forward 5 or 10 years, and we have a typical laptop, but it has the power of an array of supercomputers. And artificial intelligence programs are being designed not just on laptops, such as I've just described, but on even more powerful computers and server banks and server arrays. You can imagine how using techniques like deep learning and machine learning that we've already invented, this AI might start to get very smart in a time frame that is much, much earlier than researchers a couple of years ago were predicting. So one of the keys that I think we need to do, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, is that we need to make sure that as we design these new software intelligences, that we add in these reinforcement learning techniques with humans in the loop, and that we design the software in a way that ensures that it sees us as collaborators and not potential exterminators of its existence.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. We see all the sci-fi movies, as we've already mentioned, that isn't us and them, but it doesn't have to be. It should be that we're working together for the benefit of all, really. And with COVID, we have seen the implementation of technology really, really quickly, with sometimes policies or guidelines not being in place. So I think that's something that we have to look at in the future as well.
Well, certainly any piece of software, whether it uses AI or not, needs to be designed with security and privacy in mind, and also with ethics in mind, and with very stringent policies about data collection and data usage. That is really important. And as we are designing these newer AIs, we need to be really careful that we're training them in a way that is for the benefit of humanity, and that they see us, and I say see in, colloquial, quote unquote, but they view us as collaborators as opposed to something that may be a threat at some stage in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an important thing that has to be considered.
It is, and it's not hard to do as long as it's part of the design process. It's when we leave it to an afterthought that we run into problems.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We need to be proactive with it. And we, as you've already mentioned in previous future talks and blogs, there is already a bias in there, and we kind of need to get rid of that bias as well and work on collaboration. That should be a key part of developing the AI.
Yeah, well, the bias, funnily enough, the biases that are there come from these huge data sets that we feed them. And the biases are the biases that people have that the AI picks up on. And that's what we need to be so careful of, is that the information that we feed AIs and the way that we train them actually gives us a wonderful result rather than a dystopian result.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
I have a feeling we've probably run out of time for this week's session. It was great chatting with you, Liz. Thanks again for your time.
No worries. Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening.